Hey guys, Daniel Brigham here. So recap of day 3 at DevLearn. I'm back here in Colorado, but just wanted to give you a recap. So I went to a number of sessions, just going to talk about 2 though. The first one was called Design and Development for the Unique Opportunities of Mobile Learning by Gary Whittle, who among other things is an analyst for Float Mobile, and Gary knows his stuff about mobile. Gary suggested that much of e-learning sort of tries to replicate the technologies of the physical classroom, in that in the physical classroom you are facing a certain way. In the physical classroom, immobility is sort of encouraged, and he believes e-learning sort of follows that lead there. Of course, it's not going to stay there. Most mobile learning at this point is sort of content conversion. We're looking at an existing course perhaps and then thinking, how can we move some of this into the mobile space. But the bulk of the talk was about the features of mobile devices that we could probably better exploit. Didn't always give examples, but he sort of threw it out there as, hey, this is a thing you might want to think about exploiting, using. So the first one he talked about was the camera video aspect of mobile devices, and actually did give an example here. He gave an example of nurses in a burn unit videotaping a nurse dressing a wound and then giving that video to the patient when the patient gets home and has to do it. Thought that was pretty neat. A geolocation, mobile devices have that feature. How might we use it? The microphone. If you're interested in the soundscape, or if your training has to do with sounds or the soundscape, how might you use that feature? Clock and timing. Messaging and texting. Everybody does that, right? How might we exploit messaging and texting? Searching and browsing the internet, those use of learning at the time of need. How might we use those, exploit that feature of mobile devices? Then he covered some technologies that are coming. Some of them were already here, and some of them is sort of in the prototype stage. Internal sensors. I guess phones are, it's coming that the phone kind of knows how you're handling it. You see this on the smartphone a little bit, but it sounds like pretty soon the phone's going to know exactly what you're going to do with it. So you might be able to do things with gestures with the phone. External sensors. I guess this is big in healthcare. That phones can monitor, or not just phones, like mobile devices can monitor your vital signs, heart rate. And I'm just thinking, you could even maybe use this in sales where people get nervous and stuff. But anyways, those are 2 of the many that he talked about that are coming. And I just like to end this one with, he recommended this book called Smarter Than You Think. Perhaps you heard of it. I haven't. By Clive Thompson. It explores hybrid thinking, in that computers think a certain way, humans think a certain way, and put them together and you got a pretty smart thing going there. All right, so the next one and last one, creating experiences, lessons learned from being a performance artist. This was by Adam Weisblatt, who's the head of learning technology at Nielsen, also known as Lisa Goldstein's boss. So Adam suggests you create an experience for the learner that extends beyond those sort of expected boundaries. And I had to infer here a little bit by what he meant by expected boundaries, but I'm putting together those expected boundaries are sort of that typical mindset. It might be a boundary of the physical space, like that on-screen real estate is sort of a physical space. The boundary of what's usually done in e-learning. Try to do something different, and hopefully you're not just doing something different for the sake of doing something different, which is not different really. Some examples he gave. Take people out of the screen experience. I believe he said he would give people instructions on screen and then ask them to get away from the computer and do something. I'm not exactly sure what, but you can see how that might be useful for certain things. Step away from the computer and do X. Could be interesting, something a little different. Another example he gave of sort of going beyond expected boundaries is bring an intimate act into public. Okay, this might sound a little funky, but I'm not going to get funky. He shaved a little bit on screen. Of course, that doesn't really relate to e-learning, but I was just thinking about it, and one of the things you could do is just to add a little intimacy to the e-learning is just be more a little honest, more honest than sometimes we are, that sort of real life grittiness that we want to pretend isn't there. That could be, honesty sort of equals intimacy on some levels. Another example he gave was leave room for multiple meanings. This sort of reminded me of the Gar Reynolds presentation Zen book. And Reynolds suggests, when you're using images, have it, multiple meanings is fine. It's going to relate to whatever you're talking about or whatever text is on screen, but it can actually move more. It can mean more and extend beyond those boundaries. And, performance art and e-learning is sort of interesting coupling. They're both interested in performance, so I'm glad I went to that presentation. So next year at DevLearn, I'll be there, hopefully you are too, and I'm going to try to put together, a group of 5 or 6 people that can commit to doing what I'm doing. Basically, you go through your way, go to whatever presentations you want to during DevLearn, but at the end, sit down, write a brief, sort of recap of your day and what you thought the most interesting things were, and then share them. So, hope you found that useful, and I'll talk to you soon. See you later.